Crosskart fans, today we're going to take a pile of tubes and make something cool out of them. In racing, it's called hooking protection. In the real world, they're Nerf Bars. So they're the add-on pieces that go on the side of your cart. Now, this is going to be a trail machine. So I'm going to use them more probably for luggage racks. Plus, they just look cool. So I like them. And since I run the monster truck tires on this, I'm going to pay attention to that length of the outer bar. Now, that is obviously adjustable along with the rest of the cart. This has a 3-inch stretch on it, so technically I should have cut those 3 inches longer, but I didn't. I forgot the 3 inches. But I run bigger tires, so I'm not too worried about it for this application. Now, the Nerf bars can be used for a variety of things. You could have external pods. You could run your radiators in them if you're running a high-power setup. That'd give you twice the cooling and a pod that's open to the airflow for it. Now, the hooking protection is in the plans along with the jig, the frame, and the rear A-arms. So if you want to use them, go ahead. If you like the clean open wheel look, then go for it. I love all the builds. So let's get started on some hooking protection. Now, there are 4 pieces that get bent, so we'll start with that. But we're going to have to pretty much index every single piece for the cut wrappers. So I've strayed away from the marker and I started scribing. Now, the purpose of scribing the tubes is for your cut wrappers. You want your start and end pieces to be aligned. Now, your bend location for your Rogue Fab bender is 12 13/16. The laser engraving makes this so easy. Now, hot tip on Rogue Fab bender, this clamp block needs to be tight, all right? You can't just shove it on there and hope for the best. This is an integral part of bending. So this is why I use a Rogue Fab bender, and this is why I highly recommend you guys use Rogue Fab benders. Clamp blocks on there. We put that in. We close the valve, tighten it until we feel tension on this, where the next stroke is going to be the start of the bend. We put a magnetic angle finder right on this gap. And we know the bend angle of this piece at all times. 0.5, that's good enough. We're bending to 11 degrees, or 11.1. It's 11.3, we're a little bit off, right? So loosen it up. Till that's loose, get a reading. We're at 9 degrees. So we'll do some quick math to get our spring angle, right? So we bend it to 11.3. And we are at 9 degrees. Minus 9 degrees, that makes the math easy. 2.3 degrees, right? But we need to take the 2 off of there, so it'd be 2.1 degrees. So, the 13.4 degrees to get to 11.1. How easy is that? Too easy. Perfect bends every time. All right, 13.5. Let's see where we ended up. 11.1. Nailed it. You nail it every time. It makes fabrication fun. Now, I get a lot of people asking me about using a different bender. Yeah, you can use a different bender. No, you can't use a conduit bender. That's for conduit. This is tubing. You can't use a pipe bender because that's for pipe. You need a tubing bender. Now, this is the second one I've had. I tried with a JD squared, and I like this more. It is affordable, let's put it that way. It's not as affordable as the Harbor Freight one, but you get that Harbor Freight one and you burn through $400 worth of tube trying to figure out how to use the thing. You bought yourself a Rogue Fab. The air bending makes it easy. The vertical bend makes it easy. The bending blocks make it easy. It's totally worth it. Now, if you have a number in your head, like I'm not going to spend more than $500 on a bender, well, you need good tools to make a fast car. So I get asked all the time, like, hey, can I use a Harbor Freight bender? And I'm like, well, what engine you plan on using? Well, a Hayabusa. If you want to make a Hayabusa powered Crosskart from a Harbor Freight bender, you might want to analyze your priorities. Just saying. You guys can do whatever you want. You know that. But just sound advice. If you're building one with a 212 Predator engine, yeah, go ahead. Use ERW tubing. Use a Harbor Freight. Use the cheapest welder you can find because you're not going to go over 30 miles an hour. Human body can handle a 30-mile-an-hour crash, right? If your weld breaks or your tube splits or you're completely out of alignment. I don't know. I don't want to be preachy. I don't want to be preachy, but you guys are asking me for this information, right? You're asking me if you can use so-and-so bender. So I have to give you my experience on it, right? That's not me telling you what to do. That's just answering your question that you're asking me. So don't think I'm being preachy. I'm just answering your questions. As far as material, DOM. Why do you got to use DOM tubing? Well, because you're going over 100 miles an hour. Most race regulations require a specific type of material to build a race car, and ERW is not listed in those anywhere. People argue that ERW is the same as DOM, but obviously it's classified differently if race regulations specifically call for DOM. I use it on my faster karts. I would use ERW on a slower Predator-powered kart. That's just me, all right? I just put out the plans. I just give you the design and show you how to build it. It's up to you what you want to use. I can't decide that stuff for you, right? I can only tell you the stuff I've used, how I use it, and the karts I make doing it. I hope that makes sense to you, all right? So if you ask me how to use your Harbor Freight bender to build one of these, I'm not going to be able to answer you because I don't have a Harbor Freight bender. I've got the Rogue Fab. And I highly recommend Rogue Fab. This thing actually makes building these fun. So if there's a fun tax, this is that tax, all right? You can get it done with other benders, but if you want to spend your time in the garage, like enjoying what you're doing and not wondering if you're going to be able to make the part, like you're guaranteed you're going to make the part with this. This tube is 100% going to come out exactly how I want it to, exactly how the plans say to. That's worth the investment of one of these machines. Blah, 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 blah. Let's get bending. All right, so let's talk FIA regulations. If you are actually building this to FIA regulations spec to race it, there is a specific placement for your anti-hooking protection. It needs to cover 60% of the wheelbase, and it also needs to sit within a specified margin of the center of the tire. Now, this is in high lift mode. This is sitting almost 12 inches off the ground. So I'm adjusting my tube for this kind of stance because this is going to be in this configuration most of the time, right? So if this was 5 inches off the ground, the anti-hooking protection would be sitting like up here because the frame would be lower, the tires would be higher, blah, 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 right? So what I'm doing now before I notch anything is I'm adjusting my cut wrappers. So that is the normal position of it, but that's a little high for me. So I'm bringing it down a little bit. I rotated it and that's just on the cut wrapper. I rotated it about 5 to 10 degrees to get this where I wanted it to sit, which is about right here. And this being on a rotation, you have tons of options. I mean, you can even run them inverted if you want to be more of rock sliders. All right, so notching is self-explanatory. You put the tube in, you line it up, you use the angle off of the plans, set this. Now the only thing is the plans are set off of 0, your notcher is set off of 90. So I just count by 5s. So this is a 54-degree angle. Now that is huge. Normally I'd use my cutoff wheel and just do it manually following the lines, which you can do. But guys at Rogue Fab like fabricators, and they do awesome stuff like this for us. These are called deep saws. And look at that angle. Normally you can't use a hole saw on that deep of an angle. 54 degrees is crazy. And this just rips right through it. Check it out. Isn't that fantastic? Whew. A lot of friction there. And look at that cut. It's absolutely perfect. Everything Rogue Fab does shortens the time you spend in the garage and improves the accuracy of it. This is going to fit perfectly with very minor trimming. Fantastic. That just saved us 5 to 10 minutes. You add that up for 20 pieces, that's a lot of time you're saving. Now I forgot it this time, but usually I use Tap Magic. This stuff is really cool, makes cutting super nice. You wouldn't believe how much it changes your cutting. Alright, so you've got all your pieces cut. Now it's just time to assemble everything. This just slides right into the frame on the front side. And this slides into the back. Yes, that makes them removable. So if you're running in a place where you don't want hooking protection or Nerf bars, you can take them off. Now the next thing you want to do is decide how high you want the end pieces to be. Now I've came up with a stack of wood. You can use a brick, you can use a jack. But this is pretty much where I want it. Now you'll want to verify the other side and match them up, make it symmetrical, of course. And we just rotate that around. That's pretty good fitment right there. Now one thing you'll want to check is if your frame is level. I just used the engine mount and leveled it all out. I leveled it with the suspension pretty well. It sits nicely, so I don't need to zero it out. Otherwise I would jack up the back end or jack up the front end, whatever, to make it level so that the Nerf bars are level with the frame. So then get this back in position and I will check to make sure it is level. Now I'll just put a light tack on the top side. Now I can still move this bar around, but I don't have to hold it. So what I can do from here is check to make sure that it's the same distance from the frame, so it's squared up that way. And once I have that, I'll put a small tack on the top on the back. Now if you're happy with that, you can add another tack to the back to lock it in place. There we go, we're zeroed out. We've got this locked. All right, so then you just add your cross members. Now once you have all those tacked in place, you can remove the wood. A little positive pressure on it. Now, the plans have a rear and a forward cross member to make a cool little shape, but I'm not gonna lie to you, I ran out of 1 inch. But that's the beauty of these. You can do this however you want, right? If you just want to have one, put just one in there. Nobody's stopping you, right? So not having that forward piece gives a little better driver access, and it makes this area usable for cargo or tools or a cooler, whatever you want to put here. So pretty happy with it. So I am just running this back. Typically it would run from the back and then one would run forward. Here's an example. Okay, so once you have this where you want it, again, match the other side. Now this piece only has one notch in it because this side gets cut off straight to match that angle. So I'm just going to eyeball it. I'm going to make a mark, cut it off. I'm putting a line so I know which way to go down. I'll put this line straight up and I'll cut it off, and it should line up pretty closely with that. All right, I've got my end beveled. I've got it ready to go in. Now, before I put it in, I have to make a tab to attach this. I'm not just going to weld this to the frame because it's removable. So I just made an elongated tab. I did this one a little differently than I did the first one because I want to put 2 bolts in it. So I'm just going to put this against the frame, get everything lined up right how I want it. Make sure this bar is centered on the tab, and I want the tab kind of reaching back so I can get access to the bottom bolt. I'm going to get it in position, and I'm going to tack weld this bottom bar. So having to hold that, I can angle the top around to the back side like I wanted. Now I'm going to put a little pressure down on this while I finish welding everything, because I want the frame to be holding the majority of this and these bolts just keeping it in position. All right, that's perfect. A little bit of pressure is holding it in place. Now I'll get my punch and I'll find a nice little spot. And one on the bottom. Now, right when I punch through my tab, and this is 3/16 by the way, this tab. Put a little pressure, and then I'll drill it the rest of the way into the bar. There we go. Now I'll get a self-drilling, self-tapping screw. Check the alignment. It looks good. And once you have that in place, you can pull your cut wrappers and finish up your top side welding and clean up your ugly one-handed tacks.
It sound right, boy.
Nerf bars give you that race car look, that RC car look, whatever you're going for. Now, you can just leave them in here like this. They're pretty sturdy, but you can run a self-tapping screw or a bolt or whatever to lock them in place this way.
Hey, Crosskart fans.
Hey, that's my line. So the budget cart, or 459, or number 14, she's actually the namesake for this cart. She was born June 14th on Flag Day.
2013.
And I number all of my carts after my favorite people in the world. So the number 14 has Nerf bars. Nothing makes a Crosskart look more race car like than Nerf bars or hooking protection, right? So what do you think? What was your take on the Nerf bars?
Well, at first I was kind of like, no thank you. But then, like, you built them, and when you showed me them in the garage, I was like, wow, that actually looks good. And I used them to get in, and I was like, what? These are actually kind of handy. And so I used them a lot more than I thought. And I was like, I guess this is my new favorite.
Well, what is your favorite part of this Crosskart?
My favorite part of this Crosskart would probably be the whip, because it's colorful, it's bright, it's fun. But other than that, like, it's just awesome.
Nice.
My whole cart is awesome, but those are my two favorites. So.
Very cool. So that's how you build Nerf bars for your VF1 Crosskart. If you want to build them, build them. If you don't want to build them, don't build them. It's up to you. This is all how you want to make your perfect machine, right? My daughter did not think Nerf bars would be a part of a perfect machine, but
I guess I was wrong.
Nice. So until next time,
enjoy the build.